This is one of the more extensive briefs that we're going to go into from the standpoint of activities that take you through the entirety of targeting. And ultimately, this builds the foundations to do a crazy amount of really cool outreach. So I'm really looking forward to this because, yeah, I've spent a crazy amount of time building stuff out. So the first thing is we are looking at the resources. This is the brief. There is a prompt in which you can use to enrich a raw list that we're going to be generating. We have a raw targeting list. This allows us to use other resources outside of the B2B SaaS tools that we're going to use. For now, I'm going to skip the first step because I really want to focus in on using Apollo, which is the B2B software as a service tool allowing for discovery. There are lots of other discovery methods that I've covered in the slides. I've also covered some of the different tools, and I'm briefly going to go into those in just a moment. And then from the standpoint of the raw targeting, I've kind of already covered that. So I'm going to remove that there. Cool. So first thing, make a copy of the raw targeting list. Again, you will use this in order to find different companies that are intriguing or interesting to you if you are not using the B2B SaaS tools, i.e., if you are discovering companies that are off of lists. Let's move past that one. Next, we want to make sure that we can search for companies using B2B software as a service tools. That's what this massive list is. And I have, again, spent tons of time reviewing, collecting, and playing with different tools. So there's a lot of value in here. As I've said previously, you get up to 250 credits per day within Apollo. Some of these other tools are set to much lower limits monthly, but I do think that there's a lot of value inside of this. Something to consider, sign up for all of these just so you have the ability to accumulate credits and use them as needed when needed. Sign up for Apollo. Why did I choose Apollo? Apollo is one of many of the different tools that I've shown. The reason that I chose Apollo was quite simply it's got the highest number of credits and allows you to do both discovery and outreach, which is two thumbs up. So you're going to go through the sign up flow by clicking this link and then walking through the sign up. After you have signed up for Apollo, you will end up inside of their platform. Now, there is some online tutorial stuff. We can skip that because we're going to go right into the company search. So you're looking at the home screen. I am clicking on the company search. Let's start to narrow down the companies that we're looking for based on some of the targeting that we've already gone over. So the first thing that I obviously want to make sure that I'm targeting is the location. Account location refers to accounts or offices that are somehow listed within the different company details. Now, this particular instance, I'm going to put down Denmark because why not? That's where I'm located. Maybe you want to move there. If you wanted to further target by additional countries or even region, you could put that in there, and that allows you to kind of broaden your search. After that, we really want to narrow by the niche or the field. You can see that there's 96,000 companies in here, so obviously I have some narrowing to do. I am really into the blockchain space, so if I put down blockchain, all of a sudden it is drastically going to narrow down to 229. Now that is based off of a particular key phrase, and if I put a similar key phrase like crypto, it may end up adding a few more. Yeah, not many. The challenge that I often have with tools like this is industries are preset and you don't always have the flexibility with those. So you're going to have to play with it to see what you can come up with. But the goal is to create these narrow segments that are all common or similar to each other so that we can use the same messaging to reach out to all of them at the same time. Back inside of our brief, we want to start to focus on creating lists so that we can reach out to specific companies that all have the same types of things in common. So we're going to build lists right inside of Apollo that we can further enrich, we can scrape, we can do all kinds of things if we want to. So let's get started doing that. As you saw before, I am currently looking at companies that are within Denmark that are within the niche of blockchain and crypto. Now, if I wanted to further narrow by companies that were maybe a little bigger than 10 employees, but smaller than, let's say, I don't know, 1,000, then I have managed to take my large list and drop it down to something that's a little more manageable. Now I can individually go through and check these out, or I could consider generating this list right now. I am going to start to build my list and I'm going to create it and I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. One of the first things that I need to do is I need to start selecting companies and organize them in a list. It's going to take me a minute to do that, but I want to show really quickly how it works. I already have my list of Danish companies that are a certain size that are within the blockchain and crypto space. So if I were to try to hit select all, I hit a paywall. And the problem with the paywall is it's asking me to pay $49. We do not have to do that. We can select 25 at a time. It just takes a couple of extra clicks. So I am going to do the 25 that are on here, and I'm going to now create a list. I have to create a list in order to save a bunch of companies to that list. So these are companies, and I am naming this Blockchain Denmark. You can see it's created a list successfully, and now these are the companies that are on there. In order to add more companies, I'll hit the next button, and I can continue to select the amount of companies that exist on this page and hit apply, and then I can add them to my list as part of that growing list of blockchain Denmark companies. Maybe I want to get a little more granular with the way that I'm checking things over so I can actually save individual companies rather than having to do this whole copy thing and then adjust. So I'll hit save for one specific company, add it to a list, and make sure that I'm selecting the right list and hit add to list. Now, yes, this is slower, but it does do the job, and you can always go back into the list and decide that you want to adjust your specific list to say, you know what, this is not a company that belongs on my list. So all I need to do is hit the three dots and I can delete said company from my list. Eventually, we're going to use this list to run outreach to all of these individual companies, but I want to show a few different ways that we can capture even more companies if we run out of credits or we decide we don't want to do outreach on Apollo. This is kind of a nice to know and an interesting way of doing it. So we're going to jump back over to our brief, and you can see that it's telling me, okay, I can get this Chrome extension and I can scrape Apollo. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to copy, paste. I am going to add the extension to Chrome. Now I can see it inside of Chrome, and I'm going to make sure to pin it. So now I can click here and it will capture information. So let me show you exactly what that looks like. This is a search I just did within Apollo for companies within Denmark that have the industry / keyword of artificial intelligence. Now I have 1,000 companies here, and using this scraper, I can get up to 5 pages worth of data. So all I'm going to do is click on that little Pokemon ball icon, and happy days, it has figured out which table I want to scrape. And if I want to consistently scrape the same table by hitting the next button automatically, I just need to locate the next button. So I'll click locate the next button, and down here is where my next button is. I'm clicking that. Now all I need to do is hit start crawling, and it does its magic. Now again, I only get 5 pages. I can further narrow or I can start from a different point, but this is how it's done. So you can see that it's basically stopped me at 5 pages, and I can either download as a CSV or I can copy all and I can throw it into my raw list. Now, this will allow me to enrich on different platforms to find people working there. Lots of different ways to do it, but I'm just going to hit copy all. Now I'm inside of my Apollo Scraper v2 and paste. Now everything should line up here. I can get rid of the top row, and sometimes it pulls in dumb fields that don't matter. So it has the save icon as part of the table. The score and number of keywords obviously isn't relevant for you. It's just what it is. But the most important stuff that we really have here is the company URL, the company name, and of course, LinkedIn. This will allow us to do a lot of interesting things when it comes to reaching out to direct people a little bit later on. But I hope this was interesting. Lots of different ways to play ball with this. Try to do one of these lists. I think it's really interesting stuff. And eventually we will be running outreach to these people. Before I let you run off, I just wanted to cover some of the resources that I spent quite a bit of time building. I know I've covered some of these, but I think it's really interesting to see them, at least from the standpoint of targeting, because we've already been there. So, under additional tools, I know that I've definitely covered, there's lots of different websites that allow you to discover companies based off of lists and job postings and so many other things. Inside of here, I've also included tools that allow you to look up companies based off of direct competitors or similar companies. You can also prompt this, and I will show how to do that when we're doing company research before interviews. There's lots and lots of email discovery tools. Again, if you run out of credits using Apollo, as I've demonstrated, there are many other tools that give you lots and lots of free credits, which is also super nice. There's lots of outreach tools that eventually we'll go into. Funding news, I definitely have covered. Company discovery tools is kind of the more rudimentary way of doing this. PR and the different types of job boards. All of these are amazing and unique and different ways of finding awesome companies that you might want to work for. So I hope this helps from the standpoint of targeting. I do want to show how you can continuously build upon the different filters that you're using. So inside of company discovery, I've put a few different distinct columns that allow you to do some creative searching. I would use this sheet to keep track of all the filters that I'm plugging in and the different ways that I'm finding companies within Apollo or any of these other search tools. Once I get to a point where I'm happy with it and I can consistently use the same filters and find really interesting companies, then I maybe don't need to continue to add stuff. Ignore the adjective or superlative stuff. Really focus in on making sure that you're putting in the different specific tech phrases or the specific company or industry or even jargon terms. This makes it so much easier to continuously find companies across different platforms. The reality of this stuff is there is no 100 perfect percent version of a platform that finds all this stuff. So sometimes it is okay to jump in and find different tools or use different ways of finding companies. I do want to quickly mention that there is a very short guide on basically how to go through individual companies. You have to use your own discretion, but the concept is we have that raw list. Eventually, you do need to go through and decide which companies are just not a great fit for you or you have no interest in working with, at which case you could do the stoplight technique. Green is good, yellow, uncertain, and red, don't even bother, just delete them so that you don't have these massive lists, but you're continuing to kind of curtail them and get them shorter and shorter. So you have the right types of companies that you're doing outreach to that are all kind of the same cluster grouping. The last thing that I will mention, I'm not going to show it because it's super basic, is let's say that you only have company URLs because you've been randomly Googling and you haven't been using any of the discovery tools, or maybe you use some of the other listicle type websites that I've demonstrated. Maybe you need to enrich the existing companies. That's no problem. So the way that we would do this is we copy the entire prompt, we plug in the raw list. I would try to keep it less than 5 companies. That way you don't overwhelm either DeepSeek, ChatGPT, or whatever LLM you're using, and then plug those into your raw targeting output, basically, so that you have this enriched list of companies. Again, it's only for companies that you're not finding via Apollo or yeah, one of the many different B2B discovery tools. It's perfect for startups that maybe are recently funded or companies that are kind of under the radar. We are going to move into some outreach stuff real soon. I hope this stuff helps. And yeah, we're getting further along. This is really exciting.